Captain Kang Hyun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant Dawn, watching the stars drift past the main screen. His ship was not the biggest or strongest in Earth's fleet, but it was home to 43 good people who trusted him to keep them safe. They had been traveling for 3 months now, looking for new planets and resources in the Kepler 442 system. "Captain, we're getting some interesting readings from that asteroid field ahead," said Park Min, the ship's science officer. She was young but smart, always excited about new discoveries. "There might be rare metals there." Kang Hyun nodded. "Take us in for a closer look, but keep the shields up. You never know what's floating around out here." Lee Dong, the security chief, looked up from his station. "Sir, all weapons are ready, just in case, though I doubt we'll find anything dangerous on a dead rock." The captain smiled. Lee Dong was always careful, always ready for trouble. It was why Kang Hyun had picked him for the job. In deep space, being too careful was better than not being careful enough. Kim Hana, who handled all the ship's communications, was listening to the radio waves from nearby space. "Everything's quiet out here, Captain. No signals, no ships, nothing, at all." Engineer Choi Bin called up from the engine room. "All systems are running smooth, Captain. We can stay out here as long as you need." The Defiant Dawn moved slowly toward the largest asteroid. It was about the size of a small moon, covered in craters and spinning slowly in space. Park Min ran her scanners over its surface, looking for anything valuable. "There are definitely rare metals here," she said, her voice getting excited. "Enough to make this whole trip worth it. We should send down a mining team." Kang Hyun was about to give the order when something strange happened. The stars around them began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The ship's computers started beeping warnings. "What's happening?" Kang Hyun asked. "I don't know," Kim Hana said, her fingers flying over her controls. "All our instruments are going crazy. It's like space itself is bending around us." Suddenly, the air around the ship began to glow with a soft blue light. The Defiant Dawn shook gently, but not like it was being attacked. It felt more like being caught in a giant, gentle hand. "Captain, I can't move the ship." Choi Bin's voice came over the radio from the engine room. "The engines are running, but we're not going anywhere." Lee Dong tried to raise the shields, but nothing happened. "Sir, all our defensive systems are offline, not broken, just turned off." Before anyone could respond, the blue light grew brighter. 3 ships appeared out of nowhere, as if they had been invisible until that moment. They were beautiful in a strange way, made of silver metal that seemed to flow like water. They had no sharp edges, no obvious weapons, just smooth curves that caught the starlight. "Those ships," Park Min whispered, staring at her screens, "they're not like anything in our databases. The technology is far beyond ours." One of the alien ships moved close to the Defiant Dawn. A beam of soft light connected the 2 vessels, and suddenly the human crew couldn't move. They could see, they could hear, they could think, but their bodies wouldn't obey them. The air in the ship's hallway began to glow, and figures started to appear. They were tall and thin, almost like humans, but not quite right. Their skin was pale and seemed to glow from within. Their eyes were large and silver, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost like floating. The leader of the aliens walked onto the bridge. It looked at the frozen humans with the same expression a scientist might use when looking at interesting bugs. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds. "We are the Villani," the alien said without moving its mouth. "You are a species we have not studied before. We will examine you now." Kang Hyun tried to speak, tried to move, tried to do anything, but his body wouldn't listen to him. He could only watch as more aliens entered his ship. The alien leader, who called itself Veltharian, walked up to Park Min first. It placed a long, thin hand on her forehead, and her eyes went blank. After a few moments, it moved to Lee Dong, then to Kim Hana, doing the same thing to each of them. "Your minds are simple but interesting," Veltharian said. "You have emotions we have not seen before. Loyalty. Love. You care about each other, in ways that seem to make you weaker, yet somehow stronger." More aliens spread through the ship, examining everything. They took small samples of the crew's blood and hair. They copied all the information from the ship's computers. They studied every piece of technology, every weapon, every tool. "You call yourselves humans," Veltharion continued, reading the thoughts it had taken from Park Min's mind. You come from a planet called Earth. You are young as a space-traveling species, but you have spread far already. The examination went on for hours. The aliens treated the humans like laboratory animals, poking and studying them without any concern for how they felt about it. To the Vellani, this was normal. They had done this to hundreds of species across the galaxy. Your technology is crude, but effective, Veltharion noted as its people finished their work. Your weapons are powerful for such a young species, but your real strength seems to be this strange bond you share with each other. As the aliens prepared to leave, Veltharion looked at Captain Kang Hyun one last time. We will erase your memories of this encounter. You will remember only that you found no valuable metals on the asteroid. Your species is not ready to know about us yet. But the aliens had missed something important. Hidden deep in the Defiant Dawn's computer systems was a small device that Earth put on every ship that traveled far from home. When the ship was attacked or boarded, this device automatically sent a message to the nearest military base. The message was simple. Ship under attack. Need help immediately. As the Vellani ships prepared to disappear back into whatever hiding place they had come from, that message was already racing across space faster than light, heading straight for Admiral Shin Woo and the Human Defense Fleet. The aliens thought they had studied just another weak species. They had no idea they had just declared war on humanity. Admiral Shin Woo was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alarm started screaming through his flagship. The UES Retribution was the biggest warship in the Human Defense Fleet, and Shin Woo had commanded it for 15 years. He had seen many battles, faced many enemies, but the sound of that alarm still made his blood run cold. What's the situation? He asked as he rushed onto the bridge. Sir, we just got an emergency signal from the Defiant Dawn, said his communications officer. They're in the Kepler 442 system. The message just says, ship under attack, need help. Immediately. Shin Woo's face went hard as stone. The Defiant Dawn was an exploration ship, not a military vessel. It carried scientists and engineers, not soldiers. If someone was attacking them, they wouldn't be able to defend themselves for long. How long ago did we get the message? He asked. 47 minutes, sir. The signal had to travel a long way to reach us. Shin Woo turned to his navigation officer. How fast can we get there? If we take the whole battle group and push the engines hard, about 6 hours, sir. Too long, Shin Woo said. Who do we have closer to that system? His intelligence officer checked her screens. Captain Bae Young is in that area with the Shadow Strike. She's been testing the new stealth systems about 2 hours away from Kepler 442. Shin Woo smiled grimly. Captain Bae Young was one of his best officers, and the Shadow Strike was perfect for this kind of situation. The ship was small and fast, with technology that could make it almost invisible. Get me Captain Bae immediately, he ordered. Within minutes, Bae Young's face appeared on the main screen. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her, Shin Woo could see the busy bridge of her stealth ship. Admiral, I already picked up the emergency signal, she said before he could speak. I'm moving toward the Defiant Dawn's last known position now. Good. But be careful, Captain. We don't know what kind of enemy we're dealing with. Your job is to watch and report, not to fight. Bae Young nodded. Understood, sir. Though if I see our people being hurt... I know, Shin Woo said. Do what you think is right. Help is coming. The Admiral turned to the rest of his bridge crew. All ships in the battle group are to prepare for immediate departure. I want every weapon loaded, every shield charged, and every engine pushed to maximum speed. Sir, his tactical officer said. Shouldn't we try to contact the aliens first? Maybe this is just a misunderstanding. Shin Woo's eyes grew cold. Lieutenant, let me explain something about human military doctrine. When someone attacks one of our ships, we don't ask questions first. We make sure our people are safe, and then we have a conversation. Meanwhile, Captain Bae Young was pushing her ship toward the Kepler 442 system as fast as the engines would allow. The Shadow Strike was built for speed and stealth, not comfort. The whole ship vibrated as it raced through space. Captain, we're picking up the Defiant Dawn on sensors, her sensor officer reported. But there are 3 other ships near it. They're not in our database. Can you see what's happening? Bei Young asked. The alien ships have some kind of energy field around the Defiant Dawn. I'm reading life signs from our people, but they're not moving around much. Bei Young felt anger building in her chest. Whatever these aliens were doing, they had no right to do it to humans. Take us in closer, but keep us hidden. I want to see everything. The Shadow Strike crept closer to the scene, its stealth systems making it invisible to most sensors. Through the ship's cameras, Bei Young could see the Villani ships clearly. They were beautiful but alien, nothing like any human design. Captain, I'm detecting movement inside the Defiant Dawn, her tactical officer said. It looks like the aliens are boarding our ship. Are our people fighting back? She asked. No, sir. They're not moving at all. It's like they're frozen. Bei Young had seen enough. She opened a channel to Admiral Shinwu, knowing the message would take time to reach him. Admiral, I've found the Defiant Dawn. 3 alien ships have it trapped in some kind of energy field. The aliens are aboard our ship, and our crew appears to be paralyzed. I'm attaching tracker devices to the alien ships in case they try to run. The Shadow Strike launched several tiny devices that attached themselves to the hulls of the Villani ships. The alien sensors were designed to detect large objects and energy signatures, not tiny pieces of metal smaller than a coin. As Bei Young watched, the aliens finished whatever they were doing inside the Defiant Dawn. The crew of the human ship began moving again, but slowly, like people waking up from a deep sleep. Captain, the alien ships are powering up, her navigation officer reported. It looks like they're preparing to leave. Let them go, Bei Young said, though every instinct told her to attack. We need to see where they're going. The 3 Villani ships disappeared as suddenly as they had arrived, but the tracking devices Bei Young had attached were still sending signals. The aliens were heading toward a nebula about 6 hours away at their current speed. Bei Young moved the Shadow Strike closer to the Defiant Dawn and opened communications. Defiant Dawn, this is Captain Bei Young of the Shadow Strike. Are you all right? Captain Kang Hyun's voice came back, confused and tired. Shadow Strike? What are you doing here? We were examining an asteroid. I think we had some kind of equipment failure. Captain, you sent an emergency signal 47 minutes ago. Do you remember being attacked? There was a long silence. Attacked? No, we found some interesting mineral deposits, but then our scanners started acting up. I don't remember sending any emergency signal. Bei Young realized that the aliens had erased the crew's memories, just as they had planned. But they hadn't known about the automatic emergency beacon, and they couldn't erase electronic records. Captain Kang, I need you to check your ship's automatic logs. Look for the last 47 minutes. Another silence. Then Kang Hyun's voice came back, full of shock and anger. According to the computer, 3 unknown ships appeared and boarded us, but I don't remember any of it. The aliens erased your memories, Bei Young explained. But help is coming. Admiral Shinwu is on his way with the entire battle group. As if summoned by her words, space around them began to shimmer. 12 human warships appeared, led by the massive Retribution. The cavalry had arrived, and they were angry. Admiral, Shinwu's voice came over the radio, calm but deadly serious. This is Admiral Shinwu of the Human Defense Fleet. Captain Bei, report. Sir, the aliens have fled toward the Crimson Nebula. I have tracking devices on their ships. The crew of the Defiant Dawn is safe but had their memories erased. Good. Work, Captain. Now let's go have a talk with our new friends about the proper way to treat human beings. The hunt was about to begin. The Human Defense Fleet moved through space like a pack of hungry wolves following a blood trail. Admiral Shin Wu stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tracking signals from Captain Bei Young's devices. The aliens thought they had escaped, but they were wrong. Admiral, the alien ships are heading straight for the Crimson Nebula, reported his navigation officer. At their current speed, they'll reach it in about 5 hours. Perfect, Shin Wu said. That gives us time to prepare. Commander Oh-jun, take your interceptor squadron and get ahead of them. I want you to map every inch of that nebula before they arrive. Commander Oh-jun saluted and hurried off the bridge. His squadron was made up of 12 small, fast ships, designed for scouting and quick strikes. If there were any surprises waiting in the nebula, they would find them. Captain Bei Young kept her stealth ship close to the alien vessels, watching everything they did. The Villani ships moved in perfect formation, never changing course or speed. They seemed confident that no one was following them. "They have no idea we're here," she reported to Admiral Xin Wu. "Their sensors are designed to study planets and stars, not to watch for military ships." "Good," the Admiral replied. "Keep watching them. I want to know the moment they reach their destination." As the hours passed, Commander Oh Jun's interceptors reached the Crimson Nebula ahead of the alien ships. The nebula was a huge cloud of red gas and dust that stretched for millions of miles. It was beautiful but dangerous, full of radiation and electrical storms that could damage most ships. "Admiral, we've found something," Oh Jun reported. "There's a massive structure hidden deep in the nebula. It's artificial, definitely not natural. Looks like some kind of research station." "How big?" Xin Wu asked. "About the size of a small moon, sir. It has docking bays, laboratories, and what looks like prison cells. Lots of prison cells." Xin Wu felt his anger growing. The aliens weren't just studying humans. They were collecting specimens from across the galaxy. "Any defenses?" he asked. "A few sensor arrays and some kind of energy shield, but nothing that looks like weapons. These aliens don't seem to expect anyone to fight back." That was about to change. Captain Nam Bo commanded the siege cruiser UES Hammer, the most heavily armed ship in the fleet after the Retribution. His job was to break through enemy defenses and clear the way for the other ships. "Captain Nam, I want you to take out those sensor arrays," Admiral Xin Wu ordered. "Make it quiet. I don't want them to know we're coming until it's too late." "Understood, sir. We'll use the silent torpedoes." The silent torpedoes were a new, human invention. They moved slowly through space, powered by tiny engines that made almost no noise. They were invisible to most sensors until they exploded. One by one, the Villani sensor arrays around the nebula went dark. The aliens inside their hidden station had no idea that death was creeping toward them through the red mist. "Sir, the alien ships are entering the nebula now," Captain Bei Young reported. "They're heading straight for the station." "All ships, move to attack positions," Admiral Xin Wu ordered. "But stay hidden until I give the word. I want them to feel safe right up until the moment we spring the trap." The Villani ships docked with their research station, and Admiral Xin Wu could imagine the aliens inside celebrating another successful mission. They had collected new specimens, gathered new data, and added another species to their catalog of inferior beings. High Examiner Veltharion was probably telling his fellow scientists about the strange humans and their emotional bonds. He was probably explaining how easy it had been to paralyze them and steal their memories. What he didn't know was that those same emotional bonds were about to bring the fury of an entire species down on his head. "Admiral, I'm picking up communications from the station," the intelligence officer reported. "They're speaking in their own language, but our computers are starting to translate it." "What are they saying?" Xin Wu asked. "They're discussing the humans they just studied. One of them is saying that humans are too violent to be useful as slaves, but they might make interesting test subjects for psychological experiments." Every human on the bridge went silent. In space, sound couldn't travel, but if it could, the Villani would have heard the quiet, deadly sound of humanity getting truly angry. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "permission to load all weapons with explosive charges instead of standard ammunition?" "Permission denied," Admiral Xin Wu said. "We're not here to destroy them. We're here to teach them a lesson they'll never forget." Captain Bei Young's voice came over the radio. "Admiral, I'm detecting other ships inside the station's docking bays. Lots of them. Different designs, different technologies. I think they belong to other species the aliens have captured." "Survivors?" Xin Wu asked. "I'm reading life signs from several of the ships. The aliens aren't just studying people, sir, they're collecting them." That was the last straw. Admiral Xin Wu had seen enough suffering in his career to know what needed to be done. "All ships take positions around the station. Commander Oh Jun, your interceptors are to disable their engines and communications." "Captain Nam Bo, Punch a hole in their shield, but don't destroy the station. We need those prisoners alive." "And if they try to fight back?" Nambo asked. Admiral Shin Wu's voice went cold as the space between stars. "Then they'll learn why humans are the only species in this galaxy that wages war for justice instead of conquest." The human fleet moved into position around the Volani station, like the closing fingers of a giant fist. The aliens inside had no idea they were there, until it was far too late to escape. When the trap finally closed, it would not be with the random violence of raiders or the cold calculation of conquerors. It would be with the focused fury of a species that had just discovered someone was torturing their family. The Volani were about to learn the most important lesson in human military doctrine. Humanity doesn't just protect its own people. It protects everyone who can't protect themselves. And when someone hurts the innocent, humans don't just fight to win. They fight to make sure it never happens again. Inside the Volani research station, High Examiner Veltharion was reviewing the data they had collected from the human ship. The station was massive, built over centuries to house the greatest scientific project in Volani history. They had studied over 300 different species, cataloging their weaknesses and strengths like items in a museum. "The humans are fascinating," Veltharion told his assistant, a younger Volani named Corthine. "Their technology is primitive, but they have this strange connection to each other. They actually seem to care about individual members of their species." Corthine looked confused. "That seems inefficient. Why would they waste resources protecting the weak?" "I don't understand it either," Veltharion admitted. "But it appears to make them stronger somehow. Their willingness to sacrifice for each other creates a unity we haven't seen before." Neither of them noticed that their sensors had gone dark one by one over the past hour. The Volani had grown so used to being the hunters that they had forgotten what it felt like to be prey. Suddenly, every alarm in the station began screaming at once. "What's happening?" Veltharion demanded, rushing to the control center. "Unknown. Ships surrounding the station," a technician reported, his voice shaking. 12 large vessels, all armed. They appeared out of nowhere. "Impossible," Veltharion said. "Our sensors would have detected them long before they got this close." "Sir, they're sending us a message. Put it through." The main screen lit up with the image of a human in a military uniform. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury. When he spoke, his voice carried the promise of terrible consequences. "This is Admiral Shin Wu of the Human Defense Fleet," the human said. "You have committed acts of war against the human species. You have kidnapped our people, violated their minds, and stolen their memories. This ends now." Veltharion stepped forward, trying to project the authority he had always wielded over lesser species. "Human, you don't understand. We are the Volani. We are scientists, explorers of knowledge. What we do serves the greater understanding of the universe." Admiral Shin Wu's expression didn't change. "Let me explain something to you about humans. We don't care about your greater understanding, we care about our people. You hurt our people, now you face the consequences." "You cannot threaten us," Veltharion said, though his voice was less certain now. "We have defensive shields and you are outnumbered. This station has protected us for 1,000 years. "Has it?" Admiral Shin Wu asked quietly. At that moment, the hammer's main cannon fired a single shot. The massive energy beam punched through the station's shields like they were made of paper and vaporized one of the research arms in an explosion that lit up the entire nebula. The Volani station shook. Like a tree in a storm, emergency lights began flashing and the sound of buckling metal echoed through the corridors. In less than 3 seconds, the humans had destroyed what the Volani had thought was impossible to destroy. "Your shields are down," Admiral Shin Wu continued in the same quiet voice. "Your sensors are gone. Your communication arrays are disabled. You cannot call for help, you cannot run, and you cannot fight. Now let's talk about what happens next." Veltharion felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not the intellectual understanding of danger, but the primal terror of a creature that realizes it is completely helpless. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. First, you will release every prisoner on this station. Every human, every alien, every being you have kidnapped in the name of science. Second, you will return all the data you have stolen from every species you have violated. Third, you will submit to the same examination you have inflicted on others. That's impossible, Veltharion protested. The knowledge we have gathered represents thousands of years of research. It cannot simply be given away. Admiral Xin Wu nodded to someone off-screen. A moment later, another section of the station exploded. Let me be clear, the Admiral said. I'm not negotiating with you. I'm telling you what's going to happen. You can cooperate and live, or you can resist and die. Your choice. Lieutenant Koran, the fleet's expert on alien psychology, stepped into view next to the Admiral. She had been studying the intercepted Villani communications for hours, learning how their minds worked. Admiral, she said, I think I understand their problem. They see themselves as the smartest beings in the galaxy. They can't imagine that anyone could be better than them at anything. Is that so? Admiral Xin Wu looked directly at Veltharion. You think you're smarter than us? We have studied the universe for millennia, Veltharion said, trying to regain some dignity. We have cataloged thousands of species, mapped entire sectors of space. What could a young species like humanity possibly teach us? How to fight, Admiral Xin Wu said simply. You spent 1,000 years studying everyone else's weaknesses. We spent 1,000 years learning to protect each other. Guess which skill is more useful right now? The truth of it hit Veltharion like a physical blow. The Villani had indeed studied warfare, but only as observers. They had never needed to fight because no one had ever found them. They were brilliant scientists, but terrible soldiers. Humans, on the other hand, had been fighting for their entire history, not just against each other, but against hostile environments, dangerous animals, and the cruel indifference of the universe itself. They had turned the art of warfare into a science of protection. You have 1 hour to begin releasing the prisoners, Admiral Xin Wu continued. Every minute you delay, another section of your station disappears. Starting now. The screen went dark, leaving the Villani in stunned silence. High Examiner, Corthane said quietly. What do we do? Veltharion looked around the control room, at his fellow scientists. For the first time in their long lives, they had encountered a problem they couldn't solve with superior knowledge or advanced technology. The humans weren't trying to outsmart them or outscience them. They were simply applying overwhelming force with surgical precision, and they had the patience to keep doing it until they got what they wanted. Begin releasing the prisoners, Veltharion said finally. All of them. But High Examiner, the research data is worthless if we're all dead, Veltharion finished. The humans have taught us something we never learned in all our centuries of study. What's that? Corthane asked. Sometimes the most primitive response is the most effective one. When someone hurts your family, you hurt them back. When someone takes what's yours, you take it back. The humans don't need to be smarter than us, they just need to be more determined. As the first group of prisoners was released from the station's holding cells, Veltharion realized that the Villani had made a fundamental error. They had studied human bodies and human technology, but they had completely missed the most important thing about humans. They had missed the human heart. The cargo bay of the Human Defense Fleet flagship had been turned into a medical center. Dozens of alien beings sat on simple beds, getting their first taste of freedom in years. Some had been prisoners of the Villani for decades. Others had been captured just weeks ago. Captain Kang Hyun walked among them with Chief Science Officer Park Min, offering water and simple food. His crew from the Defiant Dawn had volunteered to help care for the rescued prisoners, even though they were still recovering from their own ordeal. Captain, Park Min said quietly, some of these beings have been hurt badly. The Villani weren't just studying them. They were experimenting on them. Kang Hyun's jaw tightened. Are they going to be okay? Physically, yes, our medical team is very good. But mentally, it's going to take time. The Villani treated them like laboratory animals. A small, blue-skinned alien approached them. It walked on 4 legs and had large, gentle eyes that reminded Kang Hyun of a deer. When it spoke, its voice was like music. "You are the humans," it said. "The ones who saved us." "Yes," Kang Hyun replied. "What's your name? Where are you from?" "I am called Melody in your language. I come from the world you call Kepler 186F. The tall ones took me from my family 3 years ago. They said they wanted to study how my people make music." Park Min knelt down to be at Melody's eye level. "We're going to take you home. All of you. That's a promise." "But why?" Melody asked. "We are not your people. Why would you risk your lives? For strangers?" Kang Hyun smiled sadly. "Because it's the right thing to do. That's what humans do." Across the cargo bay, engineer Choi Bin was working with a group of the rescued aliens to repair their damaged ships. Many of the vessels had been cannibalized by the Villani for parts and research materials. "This engine design is incredible," Choi Bin said to a tall, crystalline being whose ship used some kind of solar power system. "Could you teach me how it works?" The crystal being seemed surprised. "You want to learn from me? But your technology rescued us. Surely you are more advanced." "Different doesn't mean better," Choi Bin explained. "Humans have always learned from others. It makes us stronger." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Shin Woo was having a very different conversation with High Examiner Veltharion. The Villani leader had been brought aboard the human flagship under guard. "I don't understand you," Veltharion said. "You could have simply destroyed our station and taken whatever you wanted. Instead, you're helping our former prisoners. Why?" Lieutenant Ko Ran, who had been studying Villani psychology, answered for the Admiral. "Because that's what separates us from you. You see other beings as subjects to be studied. We see them as people to be protected." "But they're not your species," Veltharion protested. "They can't possibly benefit you." Admiral Shin Woo leaned forward in his command chair. "Let me explain something about human nature. When we see someone being hurt, we don't ask if helping them will benefit us. We ask if we can help them. It's not about gain. It's about what's right." "That seems inefficient," Veltharion said, though he sounded less certain than before. "Maybe," Admiral Shinwoo agreed. "But it's also why you're sitting here as my prisoner instead of me sitting there as yours. Your efficiency made you smart. Our inefficiency made us strong." Koran pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. "High Examiner, you're going to help us send a message to every species in known space. You're going to tell them that humans are under the protection of the Human Defense Fleet, and that anyone who harms humans will face the consequences." "And if I refuse?" Veltharion asked. "Then you'll spend the rest of your very long life in a human prison, thinking about all the people you hurt in the name of science," Admiral Shinwoo replied. "Your choice." 3 days later, the message went out across the galaxy on every communication frequency known to science. The Villani had been forced to use their vast knowledge of alien communications to make sure every species received it. The message was simple. "This is High Examiner Veltharion of the Villani Research Collective. We have learned that the species, known as humans, are under the protection of their military forces. Any action taken against humans will result in immediate retaliation. The humans do not negotiate with those who harm their people. They do not show mercy to those who prey on the innocent. This message serves as a warning to all who would consider humans easy targets. You are wrong." As the message spread across the galaxy, the Human Defense Fleet began the long journey home. Behind them followed a convoy of dozens of alien ships, each carrying rescued prisoners back to their homeworlds. Captain Bae Young's stealth ship, the Shadow Strike, served as an escort for the smaller vessels. She had volunteered for the job, saying that someone needed to make sure the rescued beings made it home safely. "Admiral," she radioed back to the Retribution, "some of these aliens are asking if they can visit Earth someday. They want to see the world that produces people like us." Admiral Shinwoo smiled. "Tell them they're welcome any time. Humanity can always use more friends." On the defiant dawn, Captain Kang Hyun stood on his bridge, watching the stars ahead. His ship had been repaired and upgraded, but more importantly, his crew had been changed by their experience. "Captain," Park Min said, I've been thinking about what the Villani said, about how our emotional connections make us weaker. And, Kang Hyun asked, I think they were wrong. Those connections aren't our weakness, they're our greatest strength. When the Villani took our memories, they thought they were erasing us. But our bonds with each other are stronger than memory. Lee, Dong looked up from his security station. Speaking of bonds, sir, I've got something to report. The rescued prisoners have been teaching some of our people their languages and customs. The cargo bay has turned into some kind of cultural exchange center. Kim Hana laughed from her communications. Post. Yesterday I learned to sing a traditional song from Melody's people. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Choi Bin's voice came over the intercom from engineering. And I learned how to build a solar engine from the Crystal people. When we get home, I want to start sharing this technology with Earth scientists. Captain Kang Hyun nodded with satisfaction. This was what made humans special. They didn't just rescue people. They made friends with them. Months later, when the convoy finally reached human space, they were met by the largest celebration in Earth's history. The rescued aliens were treated not as strangers, but as honored guests. Many chose to stay and learn more about the strange species that had risked everything to save them. And across the galaxy, the message was received and understood. Humanity was no longer an unknown species lurking on the edges of civilization. They were the new protectors, the ones who would come when others couldn't protect themselves. The Villani had wanted to study human nature. In the end, they had learned more about it than they ever wanted to know. They had discovered that humans didn't just fight for territory or resources, they fought for justice, and they never ever abandoned their own.